It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Well, good day and welcome to the program. Another fun one today. The sky is falling. There's been a lot of space talk recently, the event in Russia. I don't know if it's asteroids or meteors. That's why our guest is with us today. But J.D. Matty, Astronomers of Verde Valley, and we've chatted with him any number of times, and perhaps never more timely or topical than this visit. So we say good day to you, J.D.
Yes, glad to be back.
Good to have you here. And as I said at the beginning, we've had a number of kind of incidents, a close call with an asteroid, or the event in Russia that I think a lot of people saw, dramatic video on the news that many dashboard cameras and whatnot caught. And there's a comet out there right now that's in our skies that I think here in the Verde Valley we can see. And so we thought we got to get JD in here and pick his brain a little bit. So thanks for coming and visiting with us.
Yeah, we'll discuss the Russian meteor.
Let's start with that. That looked like a Hollywood movie to me. Streaking across the sky. It did hit the ground.
Yes.
Hit the earth.
Well, it actually landed in a lake. But because of the situation in Russia, there's a lot of vehicles now have dash cams. So they were able to triangulate and watch all these different videos and pretty much follow the path all the way until it hit, and it actually hit in a frozen lake and created, roughly a 20, 30-foot hole in it.
Now, did they, like the rock itself, the thing that was in space itself, did they find any of that?
They haven't yet. They're probably going to wait till it warms up a little bit to dive down and find that. But they did find lots of small pieces of it.
It breaks apart.
Yes, this was particularly, I believe, was a stony, what's known as a stony meteorite. So when it heated up, superheated, coming through the atmosphere at maybe towards 50,000 miles an hour. So it was getting really hot, and it did actually split up into two pieces. And there was a little bit what they call meteor rain fell here and there, just small pieces, maybe the size of a nickel or a dime.
Didn't they recover some of those here and there?
Yes,
some
quite a few
kids
pieces.
And whatnot. Now, how big was this?
That was about 30 meters or just under 100 foot in size. That's what they're estimating.
Which would be, well, that's pretty, I mean, that's pretty good.
That's a pretty good size rock, yes.
Like a heavy truck, like a semi.
or a school bus, maybe.
Yowza, okay.
So it's pretty good size. Being in stony nature, rock, basically a big rock, it did break apart pretty much coming through the atmosphere.
So if this had hit kind of, I mean, it was at that kind of angle, and I suppose that kind of helps. You think of it like an airplane landing. It makes it smoother. If it goes nose in.
If it would have come straight in, there's a chance that it may have heated up even more. And because it was a stony type meteorite, maybe it would have broken up even more before it hit the ground.
Okay. Just as a point of reference, many of us are familiar with Meteor Crater here in Arizona. Was this that same size?
No.
Do you know?
No, it was much smaller.
This was smaller than that?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes. It still
big enough.
Obviously did a lot of damage. It was the at first they thought it was the impact that caused all the damage from like a tremor or an earthquake, but it indeed was like the sonic boom.
Well, they said like thousands of windows in apartment buildings broken and things like that. That would have been the concussion of the boom that did that.
Correct. Yes. It built up that much pressure in the atmosphere and caused that much sonic disturbance.
Incredible. Again, the visuals of it, I think, illustrated for the layman. I mean, you're familiar with how these things work, but to me it was like, oh my gosh, where's,
The normal meteorite that you see is about the size of a grain of sand. During the meteor showers that happen
like the Perseid?
Yes.
When we see those are very small.
Exactly, very small.
And you think of the light they put off by flying through the atmosphere.
Correct.
So it's, on this one, did they name it, or I'm not sure how to refer to it? And was it a meteor or
well, it was a small asteroid.
A small asteroid.
Yes. When it hits the atmosphere is when it becomes a meteor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
as it enters the atmosphere.
That's why JD comes on the show. Tell us things like that. Okay. So at the point when it became a meteor, is that when it breaks up, when it hits the atmosphere?
Yes.
Or when it hits the earth?
Superheats up. No, it superheats up.
Okay.
And that's when it'll either. If it's metal, it has more of a chance of hitting the earth.
Gotcha.
When it's a rocky type meteorite, that's usually it vaporizes. The stone becomes so hot it actually vaporizes.
And that's why we found what you called the rain.
Yes.
The little
small pieces.
Okay, so you pictured anything breaking up in flight.
Correct.
Is going to drop little pieces.
Yeah, and occasionally here in Arizona, I've seen meteors not quite this large, but some as they travel through, they'll go along and then split into 2 pieces or 3 pieces maybe.
Yeah. How many, is there a way to know how many meteors strike the Earth every year, give or take, that could be recovered? Say, where you might find, whether it's nickel size or, do we have any gauge?
If you could recover it all, NASA indicates that there's about 100 tons of meteors hit the Earth each day, 100 tons every day. So
cosmically speaking, this event in Russia wasn't really that unusual.
That unusual, correct.
But a lot of people took pictures of it.
Yes.
And JD, here's the eye roll for me. It came the same day, or within a day, of this asteroid that they were talking about that was much bigger.
Correct.
They kept saying it missed us by 15 minutes. In other words, if our orbit had been 15 minutes slower around the sun, it would have hit us.
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
Possibly.
Now,
and the asteroid DA14, as it's known, had an orbit very similar to Earth's. In other words, it was following along kind of behind us.
Okay.
So that's one reason it kind of swung by us really fast at an angle. But if it would have hit us, it wouldn't have been probably near as devastating as if it had been coming from the other direction. Because we were actually traveling, exactly, head on.
Almost like a collision in a roundabout.
Correct, exactly.
Tends to be less severe than a head-on collision.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it was pretty close, though, within, I think, 17,000 miles.
And again, cosmically speaking, that's right in the neighborhood.
That's about the width of a hair, or even less. That's about the width of an atom.
Now, to me, I'm just like, now these two events, this thing in Russia, this meteor in Russia, and what you just talked about, the bigger one, it seems to me like, come on, that's so close. Space is a big place. The timing is almost on top of each other. They have to be related. And what do you say to that?
Well, even they're theorizing millions of years ago, maybe during the dinosaurs or before, pretty much rained asteroids and rained comets all the time. There's a lot of theory that the solar system was just full of small bodies bouncing around off of each other. And it's, of course, tough to prove. But if you look at the moon and look at some of the other planets in our solar system, they're just riddled with craters from being bombarded. The moon has thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of craters from meteor activity.
Does it take more impacts than the Earth because less atmosphere?
Correct, yeah. Having no atmosphere is just like no brakes. The air, our atmosphere acts like a brake and slows things down.
Okay. And then because of kind of the nakedness of the moonscape, we can see them. I mean, even standing in the yard, you can see a lot of the bigger.
If we could remove all the dirt and all the foliage and all the oceans on Earth, it would probably look a lot like the moon.
It's okay, there you go. I'll be darned. Fascinating stuff. So, okay, so the two, there's not really any definitive way of knowing if they were related.
Right. Well, they checked orbits on them, and there again, because they had such good documentation from the Russian meteor, they were able to track where it basically came from. And at first, they thought they might be related, but then it was found that no, they weren't. It was just a coincidence.
Okay. Asteroids are typically, I mean, just part of the cosmic debris from who knows when. Do we have ways of kind of estimating some planet Superman's home planet blew up, and so that's what's fallen now, or do we know where do they come from?
When stars form, many stars and nearly everything everything spins in the universe, as the stars are formed and come together and start to ignite, they form what's known as a disk of dust around them, and this dust eventually maybe starts coagulating and coming together gravitationally and such, bumping into each other, and forms planets. And we have what's known as the asteroid belt out between Mars and Jupiter, roughly 200 million miles away from us. And there's a lot of mass there, but not enough mass to form a planet.
To tighten up.
Exactly.
Okay. So does a piece of that kind of fall out of orbit and then
occasionally
take off on its own?
I'm sure you've seen the Star Wars movies where they're racing through the asteroid belt, and it's almost like a video game. Well, in actuality, the nearest asteroids to each other are like 7,000 miles, so there's a lot of room in between. But occasionally, they will bump into each other.
All right, great stuff, JD. Always fascinating to talk to you. Plenty more to come. JD Maddie, Astronomers of Verde Valley. We'll talk more after this on Countywide.
Having a fire escape plan is very important to keep your family safe and together in the event of a fire. When you awake to the sound of a smoke detector and smoke in your room, don't stand straight up. Carefully roll off your bed and stay low under the smoke. If your door is shut, feel the door with the back of your hand. Slowly open the door if no heat is felt. Always stay low until you get to the outside of your home. Always have two ways out of your house and a specified meeting place somewhere outside your home. Home escape plans should be drawn up and rehearsed on a regular basis. Death if caught in a fire.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
So, I got this new family, and I don't know what it is about this one, but she can't seem to put down that toy all day long. Tap, 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 tap. Oh, and she even talks to it. She talks to that more than she talks to him. What's up, bro? Nice shirt. Who's she talking to? Her mom? She talks to her mom a lot.
We welcome you back to the program. Always great conversation with J.D. Maddie, astronomers of Verde Valley, and talking about space. The Chicken Little show. We're not calling you Chicken Little, but there's a little bit of sky falling here with so many events kind of stacked up on one another here this past winter, and fascinating to talk about. So we appreciate you coming in.
Sure.
Tell me, that's not it. We talked about these kind of two.
Right.
There's more.
Well, yes, asteroid DA-14 was a close call, and it was real hyped in the media and such.
The one you just talked about in the first segment.
Yes,
Oh, okay,
and some of the astronomers, one of our club members, he actually spotted it that night as it was going away. But there's a big push right now for telescopes all over the world to look for these things. For example, just March 3rd, there was asteroid, what they call 2013 ET, that was 460 foot approximately across. It passed within 600,000 miles of Earth, and it was 8 times the size of the Russian meteor.
Okay, now you're getting up there.
Yes, and just recently, this past couple of weeks, 2 more asteroids. One passed by Earth at 93,000 miles. It was a city block in size. That would have done substantial damage if it would have entered our atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then another one the size of the Russian meteor passed by Sunday. It was quite a bit farther than the moon, 279,000 miles. So there's an effort to detect these things, but NASA right now only tracks asteroids that are roughly a half a mile in diameter or larger.
Okay.
And they think they've discovered about 90% of them. So that's big asteroids. But only 10% of the smaller asteroids have been found. So there's another 90% out there, like the ones that were just recently discovered in the past few weeks.
Some people are going to listen to the show and all of the media attention on these 2 events here recently and all of that kind of thing, and think, oh my gosh, all of a sudden, all kinds of stuff's coming out of the sky. Is this year different than any other year? Really?
Not really. There again, more and more telescopes are looking for them.
Yeah.
Our Discovery Channel telescope that we have at Happy Jack in conjunction with Lowell Observatory, they're going to help look for these what's called near-Earth objects, or NEOs as well.
All right, here comes the question. The Bruce Willis movie. You know, it sounds silly, but now's the time to talk about it if we're ever good on this show. If, one of these guys with his big telescope or small saw something sizable that could really cause problems, you mentioned the square city block size, on a straight-on bearing for us was going to hit, is there anything we could do?
If we knew well in advance, we possibly could do something about it.
Okay, what would we do about it?
Well, there's, like the Bruce Willis movie, they tried blowing it up, and that would really not do much if we could even blow it up.
Sure.
Have enough
That's a
power to blow it
movie.
up. Yes,
You bet.
If we could blow it up, it might split into 2 or 3 pieces and even cause more damage.
Right.
So the idea is to move it. There's ion propulsion, they've talked about that, but it could be something as similar as when I was a small kid. In science class we had what was known as a radiometer, and I think for our viewing audience they'll show a picture of it.
Okay.
But this radiometer is in a vacuum, and it's basically a black and silver bladed fan that when you put it in the sunlight or put a strong light source on it, it spins.
Right. Okay. Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
And a lot of asteroids are fairly
remember.
dark in color. Some are fairly light, but some are dark in color. And the idea is to basically paint it or put a powder, almost like a talcum powder,
Right.
color the thing white, and let the sun push it away. Very similar to how the radiometer works.
So, like effectively kind of deflecting its orbit.
Yes, yes. Just this tiny
Enough,
bit, just a
wouldn't
tiny
take
bit
much.
of pressure. But we would have to know well in advance it was coming.
Well, sure.
To
Things moving
make
right
something
along.
like that happen. Yes.
Isn't that something?
But just since roughly about 1994-ish, there's been almost 600,000 asteroids discovered.
Incredible. How do they know? I know that asteroids can change orbit, kind of like you described.
Yes.
If they get close enough to the sun, or how close they get to the sun, can change either minutely or dramatically an orbit. So I assume when they being the scientists, the guys, the astronomers, see these. Are they able to kind of predict a trajectory and say, it's headed for us today, but in a year it won't be?
Yes, just like this asteroid DA14 of a couple of weeks ago, it probably changed its orbit just slightly because of the gravitational pull of the Earth.
Okay.
And then as it goes by, they're able to plot it accurately now, and they'll be able to tell where it's going to be next.
Once you get its size and speed,
Yes.
you can assume, or rather figure out mathematically.
Correct. Where it's going to end up.
Where it's going to end up.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. JD, absolutely incredible. Is there? I mean, you live this stuff, and you've spent your whole life really looking toward the skies. Again, is this anything new to you? Do you?
Well,
because there's been people that have said, "Well, we're concerned that oh my gosh, now we've got one more thing to worry about."
There's a concern, but there's not a concern. There again, the atmosphere. We're blessed in having
Right.
a fairly thick atmosphere that protects us from not only asteroids but cosmic rays and such. So
Right.
back in 1908, I believe it was, there was a large meteor struck in Russia and Siberia,
Right.
and it was just like 20 nuclear bombs going off, devastating that area.
In a kind of a mostly unpopulated.
It was a very remote area.
And
yes,
so
a very remote area.
Thank heaven.
If that would have
that's where
hit, yes, if that would have hit a metropolitan city
Yeah.
back then, it would have been pretty devastating.
Bad
yes.
news.
It was similar, maybe not quite as bad as our own meteor crater that we had near
Is that
Flagstaff.
right?
Yes.
Okay, so pretty good blast. We need to take another short break. When we come back, we'll have more from JD Maddie. Astronomers of Verde Valley. Interesting stuff today. We'll come back to Countywide right after this.
I got no balls for losing.
Shocking drives it road all the time. Just had a few drinks. Just can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear.
We're just buzzed.
Just buzzed. You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right. This isn't happening. He'll be fine. I feel good.
Really?
No, not really.
Buzz driving.
Clear.
Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Shocking.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
Fire can happen at any time. What would you try to save?
My family photos.
My grandfather's war memorabilia.
My dogs.
I'm firefighter Brandon Wacker with the Cotton Fire Department. A working smoke detector is your best defense in the event of a fire. Make sure you have a smoke detector in every room except your kitchen. Test them monthly and change the battery once a year. Take the time to save the things you can't replace.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
We come back to the program, our final segment. I do want to remind listeners, JD referred to this, but for our radio audience on TV, VerdeValleyTV.com, today's program, like all of our countywide shows, is on television. So take a look there, also on Channel 2, and a lot of great visuals that JD provided, some of your astronomers clubs, and a lot of resources. So a lot of visuals on what JD's been talking about today. So I'd remind our radio audience to join the TV folks on this one. Take a look at it. It'll be online for a time. About a month or so, in fact. So take a look, because it's real good stuff that you brought with us visually, as well as what you're talking about today. There's a comet out there now.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
It's called Comet Pan-STARRS 2011 L4.
Okay.
And it's really tough to see, but in fact, I had a picture we'll show for the TV audience.
All right.
But right after sunset this evening, start looking on the horizon. The lower the horizon to the west, the better.
The west. So following the sun.
Yes, almost due west.
Okay.
Now the moon will be quite a bit higher than it was last night. Last night it was about 10 or 12 degrees below the moon, so when you saw the small crescent moon, you were able to basically follow down and finally see it through binoculars. It was naked eye visible for about 20 minutes, and we could see it through binoculars for probably 30 to 40 minutes last night before it set over Mingus.
The picture that actually for our TV audience is up right now as we talk. It almost kind of looks like a jet contrail.
Yes, it does.
That way, I imagine people might mistake that, not realize that they're seeing something really
extraordinary. That's true. It does look a lot like a contrail. And the thing about the comet is it's going to be a little brighter and it won't move. It'll move slowly as the Earth turns, but where a contrail moves fairly rapidly, it will stay in one place, basically.
Yeah, when you look at them, in 1998, Hale-Bopp was here and clearly visible, dramatically so, above Arizona for, gosh, a month or so. And I just found it fascinating that it didn't seem to move. To me, my recollection, I know this is way oversimplifying it, but like one night it wasn't there, the next night it was, and it was there seemingly for some time, a number of weeks.
Quite some time, yes.
And then all of a sudden again it was just gone. And you get the idea of it's going to slowly kind of move across the sky. And I guess that's happening, but it's I guess so far out there that you can't detect it, kind of like watching something at a distance if you're driving.
You have to remember every month things shift in the sky about 2 hours worth. So
right, you have that too.
You could maybe one night see it and one night not see it.
It seemed that way.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, in recollection, but it was absolutely fascinating. So much to look up to out there, and astronomers of Verde Valley and JD Maddie, you guys are doing, and gals, doing a lot of work, doing a lot of interesting things, and terrific website. We would encourage people to take a look there, and just to kind of, we learn more about ourselves every time we look in the heavens, don't we?
We have a couple of events coming up pretty soon.
Oh, do it. Tell me.
I'd like to mention.
You bet.
April 6th is our annual Tuesday Goot Star Night. We've done that now for 6 or 7 years.
That's a big event.
And then on the next weekend, April 13th, we'll be at the Red Rock Ranger Station on Highway 179, just south of the village of Oak Creek.
Okay.
We'll be doing solar viewing as well as nighttime telescopic viewing.
Okay, your scope will be there?
Oh, yeah.
You showed me Saturn through that scope one time. Great stuff. If you can attend those events or find out more, please do so. It's entertaining, educational, and just plain fun. JD Maddie, Astronomers of Verde Valley, talking asteroids on our Chicken Little show today. JD, thanks for being a good sport. Thanks for coming in and sharing your knowledge with us. We always appreciate it. It's Countywide. We'll see you next time.
This has been Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday as we tackle the hot topics and talk to the decision makers across Yavapai County. That's Countywide with Brad Miller and Paul David each Tuesday and Thursday on this Yavapai Broadcasting station.